Hello everyone, welcome all the viewers of Critical Care Communication, a bi-monthly magazine of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine. For the year 2022, we have added many sections to the critical care communication. Over the years, we have found out that there has been a lot of burnout among our intensivist friends. So, we have added a wellness section to this news magazine, and the section is the art of balancing body, mind and intellect, easing out the journey of the intensivist. So, with this I welcome again all the viewers to this session of wellness for the intensivist. Over to you, Ritesh, my friend.
Thank you, madam. Now, before we go to the theme for the first issue, let me introduce our section head, Professor Sanghamitra Mishra. It's my honor and privilege to introduce her. She is HOD Critical Care Medicine at IMS and some hospitals. She is also Additional Dean, Super Specialty Program and a DM teacher. She has done MD in Anesthesiology in 1998. Then after she had done fellowship in cardiac care as well as cardiac critical care, cardiac anesthesiology and cardiac critical care is later on, and also did her IDCCM. She is awarded prestigious fellowship in critical care medicine by our organization Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine. She is also certified in research methodology. She has received multiple awards, just to name few. She is a receiver of Professor S. Satpathy Memorial Award as well as Professor M.C. Mishra Memorial Award. By ICSM also she was awarded for 10 best paper. She is editor as well as peer reviewer of many journals of anesthesiology as well as critical care medicine, and including she is now our section head for critical care communication, this ICSM newsletter. She is national and international faculty for various domains like anesthesiology, critical care, trauma care, emergency medicine as well as palliative care. She is founder member of Bhubaneswar branch. She is mentor of DNB program at Kalinga Hospital, Bhubaneswar. She is appointed as independent director at Bharat Dynamics Limited, which is the government of India enterprise. And last but not the least, she had developed one device, she and her team had developed one device that is some COVID device which is awaiting patent. So I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Sanghamitra Mishra ma'am. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you for your kind words. I am humbled. With me we have our another very enthusiastic and dynamic co-editor, Dr. Diptimala Agarwal. Let me introduce her to our viewers. Dr. Diptimala Agarwal is a senior anesthesiologist and chief of critical care services at the Santibed Institute of Medical Sciences at Agra. She is practicing in the city of Agra for last 20 years. She is the founder member of National Life Saving Society and she is the EC member for ISCCM in the year of 2012 to 2016. She has been the vice president in the year of 2016 as well. She is the chairman of ISCCM Agra Society from 2020 for 3 years. She is the FICCM awardee in 2019. She has received presidential citation in 2019 as well as from 2014 for 3 consecutive years. She is an FCCS instructor, IDCCM and IDCCM teacher.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. I am humbled. Now I will introduce most dynamic member of our team, Dr. Ritesh Shah. Dr. Ritesh Shah is Director, Critical Care Unit, Sterling Hospital, Vadodara, Gujarat. He is the founder of the Vadodara branch of ISCCM. He has been executive member of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine from 2019 to 2023. Dr. Shah is a recipient of Presidential Citation Award in 2019 and 2021. He is an IDCCM teacher, BLS and ACLS, AHA faculty and post director. Dr. Shah has innovated error prevention in module in critical care and has patented the same. Yes, Ritesh. Under the wellness section for our issue, that is the March and April issue, the theme is transmuting ICU research to a happiness come wellness field through the eyes of a core researcher, the ICMR Director Dr. Sanghamitra Pati. We are fortunate to have you, ma'am, amongst us to address about the wellness research for the intensivists. Before we discuss, I request my friend Ritesh to introduce ma'am to our viewers. Though she does not need any introduction, but for the benefit of our viewers, we need this.
It's again my honor and privilege. I would say that this session will go on and go on if I keep on introducing her. So, on behalf of Critical Care Communication team of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine, I welcome you, Dr. Sanghamitra Pati. She is Director, ICMR Regional Medical Research Center at Bhubaneswar. She has done her MBBS, MD from MKCG Medical College, Odisha. A physician, very interestingly, a physician turned into laboratory scientist and public health researchers that we don't see very often. She is the receiver of Joint Japan and World Bank graduate scholarship to pursue her MPH at Netherlands. She is receiver of American Association of University Women International Fellowship for Research into Maternal Mortality in 2002, way back. Her Wellcome Trust funded research to assess the burden and impact of multi-morbidity in patients attending healthcare settings. It's very popular. She also developed something called MAQ-PC tool to measure multi-morbidity, and it is a very popular tool among a few practitioners as well as researchers. She had set up the high throughput COVAS lab during COVID times in Odisha. Very sizable contribution during Odisha. She has coordinated various laboratories, centralized it, also assessed multiple levels of COVID research as far as laboratories is concerned. She was instrumental in bringing out a special issue of Vigyan, Diganta and Science Horizon in 2021. Now, what about awards? Now, I cannot name all the awards, ma'am. Pardon me for that. But just to name few, she is a receiver of Samantha Chandrasekhar Award 2018 by Odisha Vigyan Academy, fellow of UICC, APNCT Young Investigator Award, Arya Woman Achiever Award, Devi Award, which is very important, Sadashiv Das Memorial Support Sanman she received, OTV Prerna Award she received, and so on and so forth. She is a huge dynamic researcher and having 175 plus publications to her name in various national and international journals. And last but not the least, she is considered second most influential researchers from India. Ma'am, it's my honor, rather it's all of our team's honor and privilege to have you on the board. I welcome again you on behalf of Critical Care Communication team of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine. So over to you, Dr. Sanghamitra Mishra, ma'am.
Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you for your crisp yet very pertinent introduction of Sanghamitra madam. You have told many things about her. It is not possible to introduce her in such a short time. She has many dimensions which you are not aware. I will like to tell my viewers another aspect of ma'am is a human nature of ma'am. When I was in Kalinga Hospital and we are just struggling to apply for DNB program, at a very short notice, in 1 hour period she allowed me, despite of her very busy schedule, she allowed me, and she considered Kalinga Hospital for taking up their ethical committee, and they have allowed us to use their ethical committee for applying for the DNB program. Thank you, ma'am, for this, and I am obliged for that, and it is our proud privilege to have you with us and to enlighten us about the wellness research, especially for the intensivist. So, to take forward this session, we have few questions, ma'am, which is of interest to our intensivist actually. So, ma'am, actually over decades research has been become a necessity rather than a passion, especially for the intensivist, because the nature of our work, we are overburdened, we have a burnout in a critical care unit. So, we think research is only for promotions and better visibility among our peers. But being a core researcher, especially from a medical background, you are the most appropriate person according to me to suggest how research can be made more enjoyable and passionable, and how can the intensive care research bring more wellness and increase the happiness index for the intensivist. And if we try for that, what should be the way forward?
Okay, first of all, I would say, I am obliged that you have invited me to this very august gathering, and I personally have remained an admirer of critical care medicine specialist or the community as a whole, because for me they are not only their resilience, but their strength, and at the same time their decision making skills, which have saved millions of lives. So, this is a time for me, I am getting opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to all of you, and thanks for inviting me. For the first of all, I would like to answer your question, which has got three parts I can see. First is, research is primarily considered as an add-on burden, but not, not as a something which for recreation, which you enjoy doing it. How can we make it enjoyable, and what is the way forward, and whether research can be also mutually enriching critical care specialist. So, there is a very famous quote, all the time it said when we started our career in medical college, that publish or perish. So, that is kind of used to little bit threatening that if you do not publish, you will be completely moved to oblivion by your own community. However, I would see it as publish and flourish rather than publish or perish. And research not only can be a profession, for me it has been of course a passion. Like the way you are delivering critical care in your daily life, and it has become a passion, though it is your profession, but you enjoy doing it. That is the reason you are continuing to do it. Similarly, how can we integrate research into critical care, and how can it improve not only our wellness but also bring in our visibility? So, to keep it more critical care focused, I would suggest that let us start doing things small and simple. Many times what happens, we as a critical care specialist or any specialist, we try to think that we should start with a big research, with a very complex research, with something which will improve or which will change the whole scenario overnight. But research is a journey, it is not a destination.
So, madam, you mean to say for a beginner in the intensive care field, or so to say any clinical field, we must take up small issues but pertinent to our daily practice.
Yes, the research should be from the practice, and whatever small studies or simple studies, many times we feel that simple is not powerful. It is not like that. For example, my multimorbidity study, which was the first for any low and middle income country, it was only a descriptive study, but since it was novel, so simple can be powerful if it is novel and if it is pragmatic. That means it has got some implication for your practice.
Yes.
And these simple studies, when they over a period of time, when you see the portfolio, then it becomes your track record. So, my suggestion would be begin with small and simple, and which has got very direct relevance to your practice. We should not do research which has got theoretical, which has got very academic purpose or for publication only.
Sorry for interrupting you, madam. And also we have seen that Government of India is also encouraging to address the issues of India, not to address the issues of the world.
Indigenous problem.
Indigenous problem.
Contextualized or local. So, basically what we say, think locally and act locally. So, we have to make contextualize. For example, what is happening in Western countries may not be very appropriate for India also. So, that is what I am saying, from practice, from your own day to day practice, and with your practice and for your practice. So, that should be the motto. It should be, the research questions should be generated from your routine observation. It should be done within your practice. It should, you should not think of having a very high-end lab or very something which is very different from your own practice, and it should be for the practice. Your research outcome has to be used or applicable or being translated into your practice, so that the cycle is complete.
So again it will increase your happiness
Yes,
if you find
because
that
when-
your
yes.
research output has been
Yes.
used.
When
in
you see your
clinical
own
practice.
research helping you,
Yes.
you feel energized, you feel also not only happy, you also feel bit empowered.
Yes,
And not
yes.
only that, that will also going to be a role model for your peers. Your peers
sure.
also start taking it up.
Yes, yes. To go forward, madam, there are many intensivists who are very good at their clinical work, but when the question of research comes, they think this is not their cup of tea. How we can change this mindset and how we can integrate this research into our clinical practice?
Yes. So basically, as I told before also, research is usually considered something very alien to our profession, something very, I would say, looked up as with a spark of fear or with a spark of unknowing that we do not know much about research, or research is not my cup of tea. When I joined medical college, I was also thinking that research is done by some exotic people, not by people like us.
Yes,
but
yes.
now you can see that every one of us is doing some way of research in our day life, though we never recognize it. So changing mindset is that you just see your peers.
Yes.
And I would suggest having small courses or
Yes.
small mentoring or small capacity building program also builds that kind of confidence to start. Because
Yes, here I would like to tell my experience, madam. When I became professor, I thought how I will guide my, this is my actual experience I am sharing with all these our intensivist also. When I became professor and I was given a chance to guide a student, I thought how I will do that. So that time I was searching for how to go for a research study. There was no such, some workshops, 5 days workshop or 2 days workshops were going on, but not like which will clarify your doubts and a good module. So I just went through this advertisement from IIPH, that is a certificate course in research methodology, which was of 6 months and online also. So I took up that to enrich my knowledge.
Exactly.
And which actually
very, I mean, very
increase my confidence.
Sometimes teaching also makes you do things which you have not thought of it, because you have to teach, you have to guide your students, and that before that you must make sure that you want to make sure that I am competent enough to guide my students. Necessity is the mother of invention. That way you feel like I must train myself. So this can be integrated whole across the career. Like for example, for beginners it can be early, then for mid career it can be little bit advanced, then for seniors it can be more advanced. And research, as you rightly told, 3 days or 5 days workshop may not be enough. You may need a longer course. At the same time, after we come back from the workshop, we usually forget unless we use it.
Yes.
So it should be, I would suggest that it can be blended approach, wherein you go for a 3-day workshop, come back and start doing it in your own practice, and then whenever doubt again go back, so that it can be modular with interspersed with your research work. So otherwise research with the knowledge with practice, if they don't mingle, then it may be difficult to sustain that knowledge. So that's
more
my
of a theoretical,
exactly.
not used.
Only theoretical knowledge may not suffice, because once we do it in practice, then only we realize what are the challenges and what are our doubts, unless we do it ourselves.
Applied.
Yes.
You have to apply your whatever you have learned.
And second thing is that research is not exotic, research is not something alien. Research can be done in your everyday practice. You start doing it, then you learn that how easy it is. It is, in fact, I would say research is easier than your day-to-day critical care.
Sure,
Critical care is much more
we
difficult.
hope so, madam. We hope
Critical
so
care
for
is
our
much more
intensivist,
difficult, because
that
you have to do decisions very quickly. At least research, you have your own time, you can do it at your own pace.
Yes,
but here you
yes.
have to make very, very quick decisions in a very short span of
Yes,
time.
I think our audience is hearing you, right? So, to go forward, madam, recently we have celebrated the International Women's Day in March 8th. Do you think research can bring out more gender equality?
Yes, I feel so, because
You being a women
yes,
researcher
yes.
yourself.
Research, as with, for example, previously it was saying that we were told that female literacy is one of the greatest equalizer. because once we are educated or knowledgeable enough, then we can access our rights or we can avail of our entitlements. Similarly, if you look at the STEM, the science, technology and engineering and medicine, they are always, we see that whenever it comes to publications, whenever it comes to grants or whenever it comes to patents or maybe different editorial board member, there is still a great gender disparity. I mean, majority of the journals as their chief editor may not be having women. So, to break that glass ceiling, I feel research can not only can be an instrument to ensure gender equality, but also to ensure gender equity. Equity means when everybody gets their own or I would say access to the entitlements or the benefits depending upon their situation. That is what is gender equity. So, since we are lagging behind in STEM, it is more the ever important to use research or to empower ourselves using research as an instrument.
Sure, madam, sure. So, thank you for clarifying. Being on the research field for more than 20 years, madam, please tell us if there is any gap. I can see there is a gap between research ideas and clinical work, and especially in the field of intensive care research. So, if it is so, how this gap can be bridged without overburdening the intensivist?
It is not only critical care. If we look at all the clinical disciplines, for that measure, I mean not other disciplines also, there is a gap, I mean, which continues to remain between our ideas and practice.
Yes.
And this bridging this gap between our own ideas and practice, as you rightly told, research is the bridge or research is the tool. Many a times I feel that, first of all, as you by the very beginning you had told that research is primarily done for publication, for promotion, wherein we never take it very seriously or never think it in terms of coherence. Many times we see the publication, one publication will be one domain, another publication another domain, so that there is not a logical flow between the publications, and that shows that maybe we are not thought of it much. So, first of all, one thing I see that its research is primarily done on a theoretical paradigm rather than thinking in terms of pragmatic, or many times we do it academic research for the sake of doing research. So, research has to be oriented to practice, and that is the first gap. And second is research should be contextualized for our own problems, solving our own problem, and many times we only do research to describe the problem. This is the burden of, for example, some problem. At the same time, we should think of doing research to solve the problem. How can our research be intervention design? How can our research be trial design? How can research be health services quality improvement design? So, that is something we can not only make change in patient or in our daily workplace, but can also sustain that change by translating into some policy or some guideline or some practice.
Madam, here I would just like to ask any type of research which changes policy decision, is it more important than any other research?
Yes, research, I mean, I would again reiterate that research that is used by our end user can be three. One can be the intensivist or the critical care community themselves, second can be the patient, and third can be the policy maker or the health administrator who make decisions, who make guidelines, who make different policies. So, our research should be catering to the needs of at least one stakeholder. So, they are the primary stakeholders for our research dwelling upon critical care.
So, madam, being the RMRC director, you are more into the public health research.
Yes.
So, what sort of research according to you will improve the grassroots level critical care, that is primary and secondary level critical care, so that there is less referral to the tertiary care, and the tertiary care intensivists are not overburdened.
Yes.
So, and so that will decrease the burnout among the tertiary care, because in primary village level critical care services are not available. So, we can see that there are so many referrals, and we are actually overburdened in a medical college and tertiary level hospitals, and we cannot give appropriate service to the people. So, what type of research will bridge this gap and will empower the primary and secondary level intensivists to deliver their service, so that tertiary level people are not overburdened and equitable distribution of critical care will be there.
Yes, I would suggest that I would say that this is a very pertinent and very relevant question you have asked. Now you might be knowing that the government of India as well as state government, they are setting up health and wellness center, which
Yes.
are basically strengthening our primary healthcare services, so that they not only deal with health but also with wellness. And basic for India or for any low and middle income country, we have a huge problem with gatekeeping. Usually people get referred to secondary or tertiary care even if they could have been handled in primary care. So that is what we need to look at the gatekeeping, or how primary care physician can be judicious enough to manage and the timely referral, when to referral and whom to refer. So for this there could be two or three ways of research. One would be, the first one would be health systems research. There is one branch of research known as health system research, and health system has got different components starting from drugs and diagnostics, health services delivery, human resources, then information and communication, then research. So we have to look at this holistic point of view. Why? First of, as you rightly told, there has been many undue referrals, or these cases could have been handled well by the primary and secondary
Yes.
care, but still they were referred by tertiary care, as a result of which they not only use the tertiary care level resources, but at the same time the attention of the tertiary care level got diverted, which could have been
Utilized.
given to the people who need it. So this is one health system research question, to first identify why they are, who are those who are getting referred and who refers them and why they refer. So once we answer these questions, then maybe many of our answers would be lying, or solution would be lying within them. Maybe the primary and secondary care levels are not equipped enough in terms of human resources, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of maybe they are bit scared to keep them because they do not have adequate infrastructure in that facility, or maybe they are not competent enough, they feel that. So these health system questions will not only help us to find out the answer, but also suggest what should be the solution, or maybe we should think of modular training. Maybe we can think of connecting telemedicine with tertiary and primary care. And second level of research would be health services research, that which type of patient, maybe the patient demanded, we do not know. So these health system and health services research are appropriate enough to answer this referral, and how do we have equity in handling patients across primary, secondary and tertiary care levels.
Okay, madam, we have another two co-editors with us. So Dr. Ritesh wants to ask few of his queries in context to this wellness research. Over to you, Ritesh. You can ask your queries to madam.
Thanks, ma'am, for the wonderful inputs. I would agree that the hi-fi research is not necessary. I would say that identify problems that occur in day-to-day practice. So if I would like to share at this stage that few years back I started kind of introspect what are the things happening in ICU. So me and one of my friend had gathered and we jotted down that multiple errors are occurring, which are definitely unintentional. And we designed one module called error prevention in critical care. So, which is most important, it helps us directly by improving safety and thereby improving quality. So I completely agree, but I would like to ask ma'am, see, finding out the problems, gathering data, set a goal for research, it's not a problem. But see, if I have gathered data, my next thing is a statistical analysis, for which we tend to take help of biostatistician, and because nobody of us is trained. And believe me, that for any doctor, the P value is the biggest issue to start to understand. Unless you are in the field, you have to do it or you have to teach it, as you rightly said. Otherwise, there is no formal training of even understanding of P value as far as our critical care, or for that matter any curriculum is concerned. So the thing is that how to make this statistics interesting, it is important, no doubt about it. How to make it more interesting? So that's what I would like to ask.
Okay, first of all, yes, that's a very interesting question, important and interesting question you have asked, how to make statistics interesting. Because we all of us are a bit scared about data. When we look at numbers, we as doctors also are not very good with numbers. So,
Yes.
first whenever we plan any research study, there is no harm in involving a biostatistician from the very beginning. And here I would like to say that there is no need to master the whole data science. However, one should have the basic understanding about what p value entails and how do we make sense of the data, because whoever in statistics, they may not be knowing the clinical implications or the practical implications of the data that is being analyzed. So, we as the critical care specialist, we have to suggest that what hypothesis or what research question we are trying to answer through the data analysis. So, basically it is going to be a shared activity between data analyst and critical care specialist. We no need to master the whole data science, but we should be able to, that much knowledge is required or competence is required to make the sense or getting sense out of our data. So, and then as I was discussing with Sanghamitra ma'am, that we can think of having a customized, taking our research doubts or taking our data doubts, we can have a customized module exclusively looking at not only data collection, but also data analysis and how do we interpret the data that we have collected. And second, for those who are scared of data, there is another study type of research which is called qualitative research, and that qualitative research I find is much more appropriate for critical care. The way you are describing the errors you had inadvertently, they were happening in your critical care, and how did you document? We call it observation or checklist in qualitative research. When we document the errors or when we document what is happening in our day to day practice. So, that is not quantitative, that is something very qualitative. And there is another way of doing research is mixed method, where is one part is quantitative and within the quantitative we combine or we integrate a qualitative component. It is now getting a hugely popular known as mixed method, wherein we have the essence of quantitative at the same time. For example, we see that particular cases coming to the critical care, they are having higher adverse outcomes compared to the other counterparts. So, that your quantitative data says that, but why it is happening like this, then we need to do a qualitative component to explain the findings. So, mixed method can be another way. And third is doing small interventions on implementation research or health, improving patient outcomes or quality of care research, that also does not need a very high level of statistical knowledge. That can be done with our modest statistical I would say understanding. And making it interesting, yeah, we have to find out interesting teachers, as ma'am told that she had to acquire the knowledge and skills to make her research guidance more interesting. So, once we find some interesting mentors, the whole journey of learning becomes more interesting.
Nowadays, madam, I will like to tell you, nowadays in digital era, we are getting lot of inputs through YouTube, and we are using, most of us are using SPSS. So, whenever there is a need, in fact, two of my students I have guided, I have learned lot from the YouTube itself, whatever the tests and how to apply in the SPSS, and that we can learn from YouTube also. We can take guidance.
To make anything interesting, I would suggest first we have to try doing it.
Yes, yes.
So, as long as, because statistics also something which looks very formidable from the distance, but once we start playing with the data, it becomes very easy or very familiar with you. So, once we start doing it, then we start playing with the data.
Your next question, Ritesh.
For the input, definitely now resources is not a problem. One needs to have just intention to go ahead and do it, and I am sure in the coming years the P will be possible for each and every doctor, P for possible and not like you tend to get away. So, we actually this section of critical care communication we thought for wellness as well as happiness for our fellow intensivists. Now, you know, the intensive care unit or critical care unit is one of the most stressful environment to work with. So, in that particular way, what I was thinking that the health of an intensivist itself is at stake. So, we should definitely focus on health of the intensivist. Can this be a topic for research, health of an intensivist, because it's not only physical but mental and it's a day-to-day. So, do you think that health of the intensivist should be a topic of research and more emphasis should be given?
Yes, I feel because COVID-19 pandemic, all of us have witnessed, the healthcare provider, the healthcare workforce were the first to be affected, and Not only that, if you look at many publications the last 2 years, you would be seeing that many of them have dwelt upon, for example, experiences of COVID among healthcare workers or seroprevalence against COVID-19 among healthcare worker, because healthcare worker and per se, and especially critical care specialists or critical care providers are one of the most vulnerable groups of population to have burnout. So, unless we ourselves are healthy and happy, we cannot ensure the health and happiness of our patient. So, it is not only for their health and wellness, but also for the general population health and wellness. I feel this should be taken on priority, and it can be also done in a multicentric, not only across one facility or two critical care facility. You can think of doing a nationwide the health of the critical care specialist as a whole, which would give valuable insights what exactly their burnout status. Maybe you can validate or you can contextualize one scale for measuring burnout among critical care specialists, which is India specific or India centric, and then we measure what are the reasons of burnout. And then again I would reiterate that our questions should not be directed only to identify or describe the problem. To do what? How can we design intervention which will reduce the burnout or which will improve or inculcate wellness and happiness among critical care specialists. So, how do we define happiness? Because happiness, we usually say bring in happiness or wellness. So, how do each critical care specialist perceives happiness or perceives wellness, because definition of wellness and happiness again varies from person to person. So, we have to develop that kind of happiness index among critical care specialists. So, I feel it is a very extremely important and hugely relevant topic for research.
Thanks ma'am. Now, just a part of the question that I am going to ask you next is partly covered, but see, it's a tremendous routine stress that any intensivist is going through day in, day out. So, if we ask them to do research, they consider it as probably additional stress of doing research. So, rather than a wellness tool, sometimes people take it that it's more burden. So, what's the message that you would like to give? See, if you ask me, I would say that to prevent burnout, research is also necessary one part. You are just into something else. So, what would be the message that you would like to give to intensivist fellows, where they think that it's probably add-on work rather than anything else?
Yes, because research is for them, but how do they see that research is enjoyable at the same time being relevant? So, I would suggest that because of your huge work pressure, your burnout and your monotonous, as you told, work routine. So, research may be thought of something divergent, and it can be done in a out of box manner. Like I was discussing with Sanghamitra ma'am, that there are different ways of doing research which is not very traditional. So, we can think of here some innovative or novel ways of undertaking research which may infuse enthusiasm and at the same time bring in a fresh lease of feeling across the healthcare professional, critical care professional. For example, doing a critical care ethnography or doing a phenomenology. How do patients or how do critical care specialists experience the whole burnout process? I am just giving one example of phenomenological questions. And here we can think of collaborating with not medical discipline, non-medical disciplines like anthropologists or psychologists or philosophy experts. So, this will bring in their perspective into your day to day life and also make you look life from a different lens or from a different perspective. So, bringing in multidisciplinary collaboration, thinking out of box and doing something which is not your traditional research can bring in that it should be looked at a kind of a recreation or kind of a hobby or kind of bringing in energy. So, yes, we have to pack it very well.
Yes. So, it should be like kind of an extended hobby which
yes,
should be taken rather than a work. Any work you think of, it's add on, but I agree that if we want to prevent burnout also, probably one biggest divergent where it helps us and as well as our patients is the research, doing research.
Yes.
So, thanks ma'am. So, one other question that I would like to ask, because as Dr. Mishra ma'am also said and you also said that if whenever you teach, you need to learn first. So that's how all of us, like our generation intensivists, has learned to interpret the research first, that whatever papers or articles to come with. Just because there was no formal training, there is no formal training. Now it is since last 4-5 years, it has been, so a lot of people got aware, especially during COVID times. There is one good thing that COVID had done to us, that okay, we are into a lot of data interpretation as well as knowledge of research. So do you think that now research and part of research should be a part of basic medical curriculum like MBBS or some internship or maybe PGs? Because if the fear, believe me, it is kind of a fear of not knowing biostatistics, prevent many of them to from doing research. So if some glimpse is there already, a base is there already during MBBS times or during MD times, it will help. And what do you think, ma'am?
I agree with you that MBBS is the formative period or foundation, laying the foundation stone of our whole medical career, and anything all of us know that is inculcated, our formative period or a formative years stays long, sustains for a long time. It becomes a routine in our life or culture of our life. So research should not be looked upon as something which is an add-on, it should be integrated, I feel, because
Yes.
in your curriculum and as well as in your present also. Why some patients adhere to medication, why some do not? I mean, for medical student, this can be a research question. And what are the reasons of non-adherence? I am just saying as very small research questions,
Example.
but that can be also a research question by the students, because they see also patients in their clinical years. So, and having, and every one of the medical student, they have summer holidays or summer vacation or winter holidays. So, we can have some summer research program, some winter research program, and they can be taken up by different disciplines. It should not be like, for example, ICMR has got a student, you might be knowing
Yes,
that
yes,
they are having for student, but that is very competitive and very limited students get through it. So, why not every organization or every institute thinks of their own student research program, and every discipline, be it clinical, be it paraclinical, they can think of how can during their period or during when the students are with them, how can they infuse research skills into them by doing things in their patient environment or in their clinical environment. So, once they do it in their clinical years, they learn that it is going to be a part of my life, it is not going to be something add-on
Yes.
or something co-curricular.
Sure.
Agreed. So if it is anything which is integrated in the curriculum, probably it will be imbibed in our culture, that we don't get away from it. Rather that it will have a habit that okay, it is a part of the routine thing and not something which is add-on.
Exactly.
Thanks. That's, I think, wonderful answer. So
Yes,
over to
Ritesh.
you. Yes.
Yes, Ritesh, we have actually for MD students, we have this research methodology. Government has made it, and NMC has made it mandatory.
Compulsory,
But as Madam
yes.
told, for MBBS students, there must be a recommendation, as Madam told, that it should be a part of internship program like summer course like that. Because this ICMR short projects, the very limited seats are there, but it should be mandatory for all the students from the beginning of the MBBS, so that they learn it, and as you told, in the formative years, it is easier to be with us. What you learn, it will be with us for long.
Yes, because when I was a faculty in medical college, I had designed as very summer during the first MBBS students, that how can they, because they were moving to clinical years, how can they assess tobacco use by the patient, because we ask smoking, non-smoking, and once they find out who are smoking or who are chewing tobacco, how do they design a very small intervention for the patient. So, there is a ready handbook they made, and they learnt, and when they moved to third year, I mean their clinical year, they started asking those questions. What happened is that once they practice into their clinical year, they imbibe it with ease, not effortlessly, not as something which they have to acquire over a period of years.
Yes. It should not be as a necessity.
Exactly.
It should be a basic curriculum. Yeah.
And it should be part of their life or part of their clinical year, not something which has to be viewed and add-on. I feel in that way.
Yes. Integrated. I think you have a very particular word, integrated in the curriculum, so that it goes with the flow, so that it gets imbibed very, very easily. Thanks, ma'am.
So, Dr. Diptimala, I have put my share of questions. if you have any queries you want to get answer from ma'am, please ask your questions.
Okay, sure. Sanghamitra ma'am, my question to you is, what suggestions do you want to provide to our intensivists for better utility and visibility of their research work?
Okay, so I was discussing with Sanghamitra madam before this I mean you must have heard also that previously there was publish or perish, but it can be publish and flourish. And for better utility and visibility of research, I have 4 Ds. Like first is discuss, and this discuss can be with your peers, can be with your seniors, can be with your I would say juniors also, they can be your teachers. So, discuss this your problem or your idea with all the stakeholders you can. It can be the discussion can also happen with other disciplines, not only your discipline, and policy makers. And second would be document. It can be your as Dr. Ritesh was very nicely describing that they documented the errors that were happening and how they came out with a module for error free or minimizing error in critical care. So, second D would be document. Whatever we are doing, many times we feel apprehensive or we feel little awkward that this is a very small study, we should not submit it, but it can go as a letter to editor, it can go as a case study, it can go as in different formats, it can be go as lessons from the critical care unit. So, we should try to document. And third will be deliberate. For example, if your findings do not match with others finding, your ideas do not match with others, there is always a scope for deliberation, because once we deliberate or once we put our views before a larger forum, then we also learn the other perspectives or other views, so that our own ideas or own research can be enriched. And last but the most important for any research, that disseminate. And this dissemination can happen in your own seminar, starting from your own seminar hall to an international journal, because whatever we do, it may be localized to our own hospital, but once we disseminate, others can take advantage of it. And not only that, you can initiate a movement or you can initiate a role, become a role model for others to do similar studies. And I feel disseminating also reduces replicability. Many times we duplicate many studies without knowing that similar ones has been conducted across other parts. So, dissemination helps in reducing those kind of duplication, rather it encourages consolidation. If we have done one part, another research group can start with the second part.
And madam, here actually I will also say that if you do some research, you must disseminate, otherwise the value or importance of that concept after certain years it becomes loses
timely.
its,
That should be done in time also, because timeliness is extremely important.
Many students unless they publish their thesis, it loses its importance.
And
so dissemination must be,
for example, now COVID-19 publications are losing their enthusiasm, because now it's so timeliness, as you rightly pointed out, is very important. When should we disseminate? It should be very fresh, because many a times when you submit, you find that other people have done it and published it.
And madam, here one doubt from this question comes to my mind. If some unpublished work, sometimes we refer or take citation from the unpublished work itself. So, is there any way to disseminate our work even if it is not published? Those
nowadays what is happening? Nowadays what is happening is that, for example, working papers, you can always put it as a working paper which has not been published. But nowadays, whenever you submit to any journal, they make it open access into Research Square, or different forums are there, platforms are there, Research Square, wherein others can know that it's called preprint, so that others cannot duplicate, others know that already this study has been taken and you can cite it also. So, that is one. Another, you can make a policy brief or you can make a practice brief. Nowadays, they are saying, or research brief, so that you can always cite. You can put it in some public domain and you can cite it. However, if you have to mention that it is a research brief or it is a policy brief, in that way.
Okay, ma'am.
Right, right. Dr. Deepti, ma'am, would you please suggest some useful tips for holistic research and publication in the field of critical care?
Yes.
It will be in the interest of our community.
I have it, as I was discussing with Dr. Ritesh also, that how do we make our research interesting and at the same time keeping it holistic, because to do holistic research entails or means makes sure that you have involved disciplines other than your own discipline, and here I would encourage that you should think beyond also medicine discipline, can involve nursing discipline, you can involve non-medical disciplines like anthropologists or philosophers, or like many times I have seen also psychologists, so that they enrich or they give you a new dimension to your research. And not only that, when you publish such research, it is read by all, not only by critical care specialists. So, whenever we do any research, we should think of who are the audience or who are the clients, who is going to read my paper. Is it going to be only critical care people, or one policymaker can also read and make sense of my publication or make sense of what I have written. So, keeping in view of your audience or end user makes you helps you in drafting and in modulating the research paper, so that it is not highly technical, but at the same time it is understood by other disciplines and policy makers as well. And second, you have written how do we tips for publication, as madam was saying that having some modular training, because publication is an evolving process, one does not become a writer or one does not publish overnight. So, it is kind of, I have seen that it is an iterative journey, and I would here take the opportunity to have one quote, that they say that writing an article is like having a relationship. You may love it, you may hate it, but you are going to live with it. So, writing has to be a very continuous process, and it improves day by day. You must have noticed that the day you were writing beginning and now you have evolved as a mature writer. So, this happens over a practice. I mean, as more we write, and to write better, one has to read also many journals, not only your own journal, like reading social sciences journal, reading humanities journal also makes us help in using the language and making it more literary, so that it is not only palatable, it is also appealing.
Yeah. And another thing I would like to ask, what are the best ways and means to integrate ICU research into everyday clinical practice?
I see, yeah. So, your everyday clinical practice or others clinical practice. So, we can
for
think
our community, I mean for the intensivists.
Okay. So, I may sound repetitive. So, basically your research or ICU research may be best within ICU, but it can be from your practice and doing it with practice and then for practice. So, keeping these three dimensions in mind, that whatever research you are doing, it should evolve. The research questions should emanate from your own practice. Something should bother you or something is bothering you, then you try looking at the questions to answer that. So, that is something should be the first point. And second is we should not think of doing a very out of your own workspace, because that makes you start feeling uncomfortable. So, staying within your own comfort zone, how much we can do, because otherwise it becomes a stressor in your research work. And third is that how do you see that your findings get translated into your own work or into your own practice. So, when you complete that cycle, you see that my ICU research is embedded within my clinical practice. So, that should start from the practice, I would say. Your questions, if they come out from your practice, then you naturally integrate your ICU research into your clinical practice.
And what sort of research will you suggest for a young intensivist and for a senior practitioner? And like what will be most satisfying for these two groups?
Okay. For young intensivist, I would suggest that go stepwise manner. I start with simple yet powerful, and which would be novel and at the same time practical or pragmatic or relevant. So, many a times we have ambitious ideas, but when we convert them into research question, they simply get fragmented or they simply do not stand. So, how do we formulate a research question should be the first assignment or first learning point for young intensivist, because if we formulate our research questions correctly, then more than half of our work is done. Because formulating objective or formulating research question is the most critical part of critical care research. So, and secondly, I would suggest young intensivists, since they are beginning their career, they can think of collaborating with their seniors or with their peers to have a any kind of research. And third is that for senior practitioners, we may think of doing something multicentric and multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral, that health system research or health services research, or looking at strengthening the whole critical care service delivery across primary, secondary or tertiary care. You can take up a demonstration project. So, these kind of innovations can be started by the senior researchers, because they are in a position to get things done, and they have MD students and they have juniors, which can form a very good and complementing team. And senior researchers might think of collaborating across the medical colleges, across disciplines and across I would say sectors, like it can be with policymakers, it can be with government health systems, it can be with universities, it can be with research institutes like ICMR. So, leading projects, big research grants could be thought of by senior researchers.
Okay, madam, with this we come to end of our session, and I thank you very much from the core of my heart. You have answered so eloquently to all our queries, and you have already addressed all those issues. You have asked our intensivist friends and clinicians also to go into more of a system research and also implementation research. To if you see that your work has been research work has been utilized in your work field, then that gives a satisfaction. And also you have addressed that we can go for ethnographical studies and involve people from other streams, not only clinical or medical people. So, and also you have addressed that the research should be integrated from the very formative years, yes, so that it stays with us and it is not a burden on us.
Yes.
And for specifically for the intensivist, it can be a wellness tool if we just give some time and address the local issues and find out the solution, not only finding out the problem but also finding out the solution and utilizing in our work field. So, that will take away from the monotony and it will add value to our life and it will add, yes, more happiness. So, I think with all these our intensivist friends will all these ideas they will inculcate in their life and find some benefits, and I hope this will bring some wellness and happiness in their life.
Thank you. Thank you, and I wish you all a very happy researching and hoping to see your happiness and wellness index go up through research. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. And we will like to collaborate with you in, yes, our future, all the intensivists through some ICMR studies they are doing, and further we will do.
Yes.
Thank you very much, madam.
It can be mutually enriching, and I really look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you, Dr. Ritesh.
Thank you, ma'am.